Before we dive into this wild ride, drop a quick hi in the comment section. It might feel like a tiny thing, but trust me, it makes a huge difference. That simple hi tells YouTube to share this story with even more sci-fi fans, more dreamers, more explorers just like us. I'd honestly love to see where you're tuning in from. Are you watching late at night with headphones on, or blasting this on a speaker while imagining the galaxy burning? Either way, say hi. I'll be checking.
The Council Chamber of Infinite Voices had stood for 12 million years at the heart of the Galactic Union, a structure so vast that entire planetary systems could fit within its halls, so ancient that the youngest species to walk its corridors had already forgotten their own creation myths. Today, it would witness something unprecedented. Today, for the first time in recorded history, the Council would negotiate with a species that had not yet reached the stars. The humans were coming. Ambassador Velthara of the Kthrex Dominion stood at her observation platform, her crystalline form refracting the light of 1,000 worlds that streamed through the chamber's transparent walls. She had been alive for 4,000 standard cycles, had negotiated treaties with 73 different species, and had never once felt what the humans called nervousness. Until now. "They're entering the atmospheric lock," her aide whispered, his voice carrying the tremor that Velthara refused to acknowledge in herself. Through the shimmering barrier, she watched the human vessel approach. It was underwhelming. A crude metal construction that moved through space with none of the organic grace of the SHLAR bioships, none of the quantum elegance of the Infinite Empire's phasecraft. It was a box with engines, essentially. The humans had called it Prometheus I, after some primitive deity from their mythology. But Velthara had read the reports. She had seen the incident records. She knew why the Council had broken precedent to invite a pre-stellar species to negotiate. She knew, even if she couldn't quite believe it. 372 days ago, the humans had made first contact. Not through diplomatic channels, not through the carefully orchestrated protocols that the Union had refined over eons. No, humanity's introduction to the galactic community had come when the ZH Collective, one of the Union's most aggressive expansion-minded species, had attempted to claim Earth's solar system for resource extraction. The ZH had expected no resistance. Why would they? Humanity hadn't even achieved faster-than-light travel. Their most powerful weapons were primitive nuclear devices that couldn't scratch the hull of a ZH destroyer. The invasion fleet that arrived in Earth's orbit numbered 67 capital ships, each capable of reducing a continental shelf to ash. What happened next had sent shockwaves through every council member's homeworld. The human ship docked with a magnetic seal that echoed through the chamber like a death knell. Velthara watched as the airlock cycled, as the doors slid open, as the human delegation stepped into the council chamber for the first time. There were 5 of them. They walked on 2 legs, stood perhaps 2 meters tall, covered in fabric that Velthara's sensors identified as natural fibers woven with synthetic polymers. Primitive, yet somehow elegant in its simplicity. Their faces were exposed, soft skin, forward-facing eyes, no natural armor or defensive features. They looked vulnerable. Prey animals that had somehow developed technology. The lead human stepped forward. According to the translation matrix, her name was Sarah Chun, and she held the title of Secretary General of something called the United Nations. She was small even by human standards, her hair showing the silver that their species displayed when approaching the end of their brief lifespans. Her eyes, though, Velthara couldn't stop staring at her eyes. They were dark, almost black, and they held something that made Velthara's crystalline form vibrate at an uncomfortable frequency. Those eyes held no fear at all. Honored members of the Galactic Union, Secretary Chen's voice rang out, translated instantly into the 4,000 languages spoken in the chamber. "We come before you today not as supplicants, but as equals. We come to negotiate the terms under which humanity will join your union." A ripple of disbelief coursed through the assembled delegates. Equals? A species that couldn't even reach the nearest star system thought themselves equals to civilizations that spanned galaxies? High Counselor Zarthon of the Infinite Empire rose from his quantum throne, his form shifting between dimensions as he regarded the human delegation. When he spoke, His voice carried the weight of 3 billion years of recorded history. You presume much, humans. You stand in a chamber where the youngest species present has sailed the stars for 10,000 of your years. You possess no fleet, no territory beyond your singular world, no power projection capabilities beyond your own atmosphere. And yet you speak of equality. Secretary Chen smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. With respect, High Counselor, we destroyed the ZH-Car invasion fleet. 67 capital ships reduced to debris orbiting Mars. We did this with technology you consider primitive, with weapons you classify as barely adequate for planetary defense. We did this in 72 hours. The chamber fell silent. Every species present had seen the recordings, but hearing the humans state it so plainly, with such casual confidence, made it somehow more real. What would you do if you were in that chamber? If you had to face a species that had just announced themselves to the galaxy by obliterating one of the Union's most powerful military forces, would you see them as a threat to be contained, or as a potential ally that must never become an enemy? Ambassador Velthera accessed her personal archive, pulling up the battle footage one more time. She had watched it 100 times before, but it never failed to send ice through her crystalline veins. The ZH-Car fleet had arrived in standard formation, 3 waves of capital ships, support vessels maintaining a protective screen, assault craft ready to deploy. They had broadcast standard subjugation protocols in Earth's dominant languages. They had given humanity 24 hours to surrender. The humans had responded within 3 hours. First came the kinetic weapons, simple railguns that accelerated metal slugs to a fraction of light speed. Primitive, yes, but deployed with a tactical sophistication that suggested the humans had been planning for interstellar warfare long before they achieved it. The ZH-Car shields handled the initial barrage easily. Then came the nuclear devices, thousands of them, deployed on ballistic trajectories from Earth's moon, from Mars, from hidden facilities throughout the solar system. The ZH-Car point defense systems intercepted 97% of them. The 3% that got through meant nothing to ships designed to survive stellar radiation. Then, the humans showed their true nature. The debris from the destroyed missiles hadn't been debris at all. Each nuclear warhead had been wrapped in a shell of smart matter, billions of microscopic machines that the humans called nanites. When the missiles exploded, these machines scattered across the ZH-Car fleet, invisible to sensors, too small to target. And they began to work. They didn't attack the shields. They didn't try to penetrate the armor. They simply edited. Every ship in the ZH-Car fleet ran on quantum computation matrices that manipulated reality at the subatomic level. The human nanites found these matrices and changed them. Just a little. Just enough. In the recording, Velthera watched as the first ZH-Car capital ship suddenly found its shields operating at a 90-degree angle to normal space. The shields were working perfectly. They just weren't protecting anything anymore. The ship tumbled undefended into Earth's atmosphere and burned. The second ship's propulsion system began pushing in 12 different directions simultaneously. It tore itself apart. The third ship's life support systems decided that vacuum was the appropriate atmospheric mixture. Within 20 minutes, the ZH-Car fleet was gone, not destroyed by overwhelming firepower, edited out of existence by an enemy that had studied them, understood them, and found the one vulnerability that no shield or armor could protect against. The ZH-Car had evolved their technology over 50,000 years. The humans had reverse-engineered it in less than a century, found its fundamental weakness, and weaponized their knowledge. The ZH-Car incident, Secretary Chen continued, her voice carrying across the vast chamber, was regrettable. We take no pleasure in the loss of life, but we will not apologize for defending our world. Defending. Counselor Zarthun's form solidified into something almost humanoid, a deliberate insult in council protocol, adopting a lesser species shape. You committed genocide. 73,000 ZH-Car died that day. And how many humans would have died if we hadn't acted? Chen's voice remained calm, but there was steel underneath. The ZH car broadcast their intentions clearly. Total resource extraction, atmospheric stripping, population processing. They gave us 24 hours to accept extinction. We chose to live. Another delegate rose. Ambassador Sothrim of the Peaceful Collective, a species whose entire civilization was dedicated to nonviolence and mediation. His voice carried genuine anguish. But surely there were alternatives? Communication? Negotiation? The path you chose was the only path available, Chen interrupted. Ambassador Sothrim, with all due respect to your collective's admirable principles, the ZH car were not interested in negotiation. We tried. For 16 hours, we broadcast in every language we could translate, offering to discuss terms, proposing peaceful solutions. They responded by beginning atmospheric bombardment of our coastal cities. Tell me, what would your people have done? Sothrim had no answer. His species had never faced such a choice. For 800,000 years, the Galactic Union had maintained peace through its sheer size and power. Species who joined were protected. Species who threatened Union members faced the combined might of 300 civilizations. But the humans hadn't been Union members. They'd been prey, and they turned on the predator with a savagery that horrified the galaxy. Velthara found herself speaking, her crystalline voice cutting through the murmurs that filled the chamber. Secretary Chen, the Council has reviewed your application for Union membership. Your species meets many of the criteria: technological sophistication, unified planetary government, demonstrated spacefaring capability. But there is one matter that must be addressed before we can proceed. She paused, accessing the document that had been circulating through Council channels for months, the document that had caused more debate than any treaty in 10,000 years. Your proposed treaty contains clauses that are unprecedented. Perhaps you could explain Clause 7 for the assembled Council. Secretary Chen nodded, and for the first time since entering the chamber, Velthara saw something flicker across the human's face. Not fear, not uncertainty, something else. Something that might have been sorrow. Clause 7, Chen said quietly, is what we call the deterrence protocol. It's quite simple, really. If humanity joins the Galactic Union, we agree to abide by Union law, contribute to Union defense, participate fully in galactic civilization. But in exchange, we require absolute assurance that no Union member will ever threaten Earth's existence again. And if such a threat emerges, Zhar asked, then Clause 7 activates. Which means what exactly? Secretary Chen turned to face the High Counselor directly. When she spoke, her voice carried across 12 million years of history, echoing in a chamber that had never heard such words. If any species threatens Earth with extinction, if any fleet approaches our solar system with hostile intent, if any weapon capable of planetary destruction is aimed at our world, then every human in the galaxy, wherever they are, whatever they're doing, becomes a weapon. The silence that followed was absolute. 300 species, representing trillions of beings, held their collective breath. Chen continued. We've had a year to study your civilization since the ZH car incident. A year to analyze your technology, your biology, your systems. We understand you now, all of you, and we've prepared. She gestured, and a holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber. It showed the Galactic Union in all its glory. Thousands of worlds, billions of ships, trillions of citizens living in peace across half the galaxy. There are currently 2 million humans living on Union worlds. Scientists, traders, students, tourists. They're unarmed. They're peaceful. They're learning from you, sharing with you, building relationships. The display changed. Now each of those 2 million humans was highlighted. Small red dots scattered across Union space. Each one carries nanite packages identical to those we used against the ZH car. Not in weapons. In their bodies. Part of their immune system now. Completely undetectable by Union sensors. Another shift in the display. The red dots began to spread, showing probability patterns, distribution models. If Clause 7 activates, every human in the galaxy receives a signal. The nanites deploy. Within 72 hours, they'll have infiltrated every major computer system, every planetary defense grid, every ship within 100 light-years of their position. Velthera felt her crystalline structure resonate with something she'd never experienced before: primal, ancient fear. "You're describing a doomsday weapon." "No," Chun corrected. "We're describing a guarantee, a mutual assurance of destruction that makes war between humanity and the Union not just costly, but unthinkable. You can destroy Earth. Your weapons are certainly powerful enough. But if you do, your civilization dies with us." Chaos erupted in the chamber. Delegates shouted. Quantum forms destabilized. Bioships keened in distress. This wasn't how civilized species behaved. This was madness. This is terrorism. Counselor Zarthun's voice cut through the noise. "You hold the entire Union hostage." "We hold ourselves hostage too," Chin replied calmly. "That's the point. Mutually assured destruction. We learned this principle when we were splitting atoms and building nuclear arsenals. It kept us from destroying ourselves for almost 2 centuries. Now we offer it to the galaxy." Ambassador Sothrim's voice carried genuine pain. But this contradicts everything the Union stands for. We maintain peace through cooperation, through mutual understanding, through overwhelming force, Chen interrupted. "Let's be honest, Ambassador. The Union keeps peace because you're so powerful that resistance is futile. Smaller species join because they have no choice. Join or be left behind, vulnerable to species like the ZH car. You've created peace through dominance. We're simply ensuring we can't be dominated." Velthera found herself reassessing everything she thought she knew about humanity. They'd seemed so vulnerable, so soft. But they'd survived on a world that actively tried to kill them. Extreme weather, predators, disease, and finally, each other. They'd built weapons capable of ending their entire species dozens of times over, held them for centuries, and somehow didn't use them. They'd learned to live with apocalypse as a constant possibility. And now they were bringing that terrible wisdom to the stars. "There's something you need to understand," Secretary Chen said, her voice softer now, more personal. "Humanity doesn't want war. We don't want to threaten you. But we've been prey before on our own world throughout our history. We know what it means to be hunted. We know what it means to be considered lesser, expendable, a resource to be exploited." She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes, or equivalent sensory organs, of every delegate she could reach. "We've spent 10,000 years fighting each other over scraps of territory, resources, ideology. We've committed atrocities that still haunt our collective memory. We've built weapons that could sterilize our entire planet. And somehow, we survived it all. We learned. We grew. We finally unified, not because we all agreed, but because we finally understood that we needed each other to survive." Her voice strengthened. "Now we're here, joining a galactic civilization that's so much older, so much wiser than us. We're humbled by what you've achieved. We're eager to learn from you, to contribute, to be part of something greater than ourselves. But we will never again be prey. We will never again wait helplessly while someone else decides whether we deserve to live." "So you threaten us instead?" Zarthun demanded. "We offer you certainty," Chen corrected. "Right now, you're debating among yourselves. Are the humans too dangerous to allow into the Union? Should we quarantine their system? Should we eliminate them before they become a threat? These discussions are happening in your councils, your military commands, your intelligence services. We know because we've been monitoring you." That admission sent another wave of shock through the chamber. The Union's communications were supposedly secure, encrypted with quantum protocols that couldn't be broken. Chen smiled slightly at their reaction. "Yes, we've been listening. Not through your technology. That's beyond us, at least for now. But we're very good at reading body language, at analyzing behavior patterns, at understanding psychology. You've been broadcasting your intentions clearly for anyone willing to study you." She pulled up another display, this one showing probability matrices, threat assessments, strategic analyses. Human work, all of it, dissecting the Union's likely responses to humanity's emergence. Here's what we know you're thinking. Humanity is dangerous. Humanity is unpredictable. Humanity defeated the ZH car, but that could have been luck or desperation, or a trick that won't work twice. Some of you think we should be contained. Some think we should be carefully integrated and monitored. A few think we should be eliminated while you still can. The accuracy of her assessment was damning. Velthara had attended meetings where exactly those options were debated. Clause 7, Chen continued, removes uncertainty. If you accept our treaty, you know exactly what happens if you threaten us. The cost becomes calculable. The risk becomes quantifiable. And because you're rational beings, all of you, across all 300 species, you can make rational decisions based on perfect information. You're gambling that we'll find the cost too high, Velthara said slowly, understanding dawning. No, Chen replied. We're demonstrating that we already find the cost too high. We're not bluffing. We've actually deployed this capability. We've actually placed ourselves in a position where attacking Earth means galactic catastrophe. We've done this because it's the only way a prestellar species can achieve genuine security in a galaxy full of powers we can't hope to match. She took a breath, and for the first time, Velthara heard weariness in her voice. We know what we're asking is unprecedented. We know it violates every principle of trust that the Union is built on. But trust has to be earned over time, and we don't have time. The galaxy knows we exist now. The galaxy knows we're vulnerable. If we don't secure our position now firmly and completely, we'll spend the next 1,000 years waiting for the next ZH car, the next species that sees us as resources to be harvested. Ambassador Sothrim spoke again, his voice heavy with sadness. But don't you see what you've done? You've made war inevitable. Sooner or later, some species will feel threatened enough by your Clause 7 to strike preemptively. You've created the very danger you seek to prevent. Chen shook her head. No, Ambassador. War was already inevitable the moment we revealed ourselves. The galaxy has been at peace for so long because you've forgotten what prey feels like. You've forgotten that cornered animals fight back with everything they have. We're reminding you. And in doing so, we're making ourselves too dangerous to corner. But at what cost? Velthara heard herself asking. You've positioned yourself as a threat to the entire galaxy. How can we build trust? How can we cooperate when you hold a gun to all our heads? For the first time, Secretary Chen's composure cracked slightly. Velthara saw genuine emotion flash across her face, not anger, not fear, but something closer to grief. Because we're also holding a gun to our own heads, Chen said quietly. That's what you're not understanding. If Clause 7 activates, humanity dies too. Earth might survive the initial assault, but we'd be at war with the entire Union. We'd lose. We'd die. The nanites would cause catastrophic damage, yes, but you'd eventually root them out. You'd sterilize our colonies, blockade our system, and wait for us to starve. Clause 7 isn't a path to victory. It's a guarantee that if we die, you suffer too. It's mutually assured destruction. It only works if everyone believes everyone else is rational enough not to use it. She looked around the chamber again, her dark eyes reflecting the light of 1,000 worlds. That's our bet. That's humanity's gamble on joining your union. We're betting that you're rational, that you value your civilization enough not to risk it over pride or fear. We're betting that once you understand the cost, you'll decide that cooperation is cheaper than confrontation. We're betting that you're better than we were when we aimed nuclear weapons at ourselves. Think about it for a moment. What would you do? If you were on the council, would you accept these terms? Would you risk the safety of trillions to accommodate one species' fear? Or would you reject them, knowing that rejection might itself trigger the conflict you're trying to avoid? The chamber fell into silence again, but this time it was different. Less shocked, more contemplative. Velthara found herself running the calculations in her crystalline matrix. The scenarios. The possibilities. If they rejected humanity's application, quarantined Earth system, the humans would perceive it as a threat. They'd likely deploy their nanites as a precautionary measure. War would follow. If they accepted the treaty with Clause 7 intact, they'd be living with a permanent threat, but also a permanent deterrent. Humanity would be locked into the Union, their safety guaranteed, their motivation for aggression removed. The more she calculated, the more she realized something that made her crystalline form resonate with what humans might have called admiration. The humans had thought this through. They'd gamed out every scenario, every response, every counter-response. They'd studied the Union not just technologically, but psychologically, strategically, historically. They'd found the one approach that made war irrational for both sides. They'd weaponized game theory. High Counselor Zhar finally spoke, his quantum form solidifying into something ancient and weary. Secretary Chen, your species has existed as a unified civilization for less than a standard cycle. We have maintained peace across the galaxy for millions of years. And yet you presume to lecture us on the nature of security. Not lecture, Chen replied. Offer perspective. You've maintained peace because you're strong enough that no one challenges you. We're offering to strengthen that peace, not by adding our military might, we have almost none, but by ensuring that all future conflicts include a calculation of catastrophic cost. Make us Union members, give us a stake in the system, and we become defenders of that peace, not threats to it. And if a crisis emerges, if a true existential threat faces the Union, something that requires sacrifice, that might put Earth at risk, then we'll stand with you, Chen said simply. That's the other half of Clause 7 that I haven't explained yet. The deterrent works both ways. If Earth is safe, if we're genuine Union members with all the rights and protections that entails, then our nanites become defensive assets, not weapons. 2 million humans scattered across Union space, each carrying technology that can infiltrate and disrupt enemy systems? We become your intelligence network, your saboteurs, your last line of defense against threats that conventional warfare can't touch. She smiled slightly. We're very good at surviving against impossible odds, Counselor. We've been doing it on Earth for 300,000 years. Let us do it for the Union. Velthara made a decision. As ambassador for one of the Union's founding species, her vote carried significant weight. She rose from her platform, light scattering through her crystalline form in patterns that indicated formal speech. Secretary Chen, I have a question that may seem philosophical, but I believe goes to the heart of this matter. Why did your species not destroy itself during your nuclear age? You had the weapons, you had the conflicts, you had numerous close calls where one mistake could have triggered global annihilation. Yet you survived. Why? Chen considered the question carefully before answering. Because despite everything, despite our conflicts, our differences, our capacity for violence, we wanted to live more than we wanted to win. Every nation with nuclear weapons understood that using them meant their own destruction. So we didn't use them. We shouted, we postured, we prepared for war, but we never actually triggered the apocalypse. We learned to live in a world where destruction was always possible but never inevitable. And you believe the Union can learn the same lesson? I believe the Union already knows it, Chen replied. You've been practicing it for millions of years, just with different methods. You maintain peace through strength and cooperation. We're just adding another tool to that toolkit, a guarantee that even the strongest Union member can't prey on the weakest without catastrophic consequences. Velthara felt the rightness of it resonate through her structure. The humans weren't trying to threaten the Union. They were trying to make themselves unthreatenable, which was entirely different. And in doing so, they were forcing the Union to extend its protective umbrella to truly include them, not as clients or subordinates, but as equals who could guarantee their own security. I vote to accept the treaty, Velthara announced, her voice carrying the weight of 4,000 years of diplomatic experience, including Clause 7. The chamber erupted. Delegates shouted for recognition. Quantum forms flickered with agitation. Bioships keened distress signals. Counselor Zhar called for order, his voice cutting through the chaos like a blade through water. Ambassador Velthara, you understand what you're endorsing? A doomsday device that holds the entire Union hostage. I understand that I'm endorsing reality, Velthara replied calmly. The humans have already deployed this capability. Our choice isn't whether it exists, it does. Our choice is whether we acknowledge it, integrate it into our security framework, and gain humans as allies, or whether we reject it, make them permanent enemies, and likely trigger the very conflict we're trying to avoid. Ambassador Sothrim rose slowly. I must agree with Ambassador Velthera. The Peaceful Collective has spent 800,000 years advocating for nonviolence. But we've done so from a position of safety, protected by the Union's might. The humans have no such protection. Their choice was to make themselves dangerous enough that attacking them became irrational, or to wait helplessly for the next predator species to find them. I cannot condemn them for choosing survival. He turned to Chun. But Secretary, I must ask, will your species commit to the same principles of peace that the Union embraces? Will you work toward a day when such weapons are no longer necessary? Chen's expression softened. Ambassador, that's been humanity's dream since we first split the atom. We will work toward peace with every breath we take. But we will not disarm until we're certain, absolutely certain, that we're safe. Can you guarantee that day will come? No, Sothrim admitted. No one can guarantee perfect safety. That's not how the universe works. Then Clause 7 stays, Chen said gently. But we will be the best Union members we can be. We will contribute, cooperate, learn, and teach. We will prove through our actions that we deserve the trust we're asking for. And maybe in 1,000 years or 10,000, when humanity has been part of the Union long enough that we've forgotten what it feels like to be prey, maybe then we can talk about disarmament. The vote took 3 standard days. Delegate after delegate rose to speak, to argue, to calculate. Some supported humanity's admission unconditionally. Some demanded modifications to Clause 7. Some called for humanity to be quarantined until they matured as a species. But in the end, the mathematics were clear. Humanity had made itself unignorable. The Union could accept them and gain potential allies, or reject them and create certain enemies. The rational choice was obvious. When the final vote came in, it wasn't unanimous. 17 species abstained, 43 voted against. But 240 species voted to accept humanity's treaty, Clause 7 and all. Secretary Chen stood in the center of the council chamber, surrounded by representatives from 300 civilizations, and spoke the words that would echo through history. On behalf of humanity, I accept membership in the Galactic Union. We pledge to uphold Union law, contribute to Union defense, and work toward the peace and prosperity of all species. We bring with us our knowledge, our perspective, and our determination to survive. We ask only that you grant us the same dignity, respect, and security that you grant each other. She paused, and Velthera saw moisture gathering in the corners of her eyes, the human expression of deep emotion. We know we're the youngest species here. We know we have much to learn. But we also know that we have something to teach, that survival doesn't require aggression, that strength can come from mutual vulnerability, that the most powerful deterrent to war is ensuring that no one can win it. We thank you for this opportunity. We will not waste it. The ceremony that followed was ancient, a ritual performed whenever new species joined the Union. But never before had it carried such weight, such tension, such sense of fundamental change in the galaxy's order. As Secretary Chun prepared to return to her ship, Velthera approached her. Up close, the human seemed even more fragile. Soft skin, no natural defenses, a lifetime measured in decades rather than millennia. Yet this small, soft creature had just reshaped galactic politics through sheer audacity and strategic brilliance. Secretary, Velthera said quietly, I have one final question off the record. Are you prepared for what comes next? Not every species in the Union voted to accept you. Some will test you, probe for weaknesses, try to undermine Clause 7's credibility. Others will fear you, perhaps even hate you. Your path will not be easy. Chen smiled, and this time it was genuine, warm, very human. Ambassador, my species has never had an easy path. We evolved as persistence hunters. We couldn't run fast, couldn't fight strong, but we could keep going long after our prey collapsed from exhaustion. We climbed out of Africa and spread across an entire planet despite every other species being better adapted than us. We survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and our own worst impulses. Easy? We don't know what easy looks like. She offered her hand, a human gesture of respect and agreement. Velthara extended a crystalline appendage and carefully grasped it. "We'll see you at the next council session," Chen said. "An ambassador? Thank you. For seeing past the fear, for understanding what we were trying to do, for giving us a chance." As the human delegation departed, as Prometheus 1 disengaged from the council chamber and began its journey back to Earth, Velthara stood at her observation platform and watched them go. Around her, other delegates were already forming coalitions, planning strategies, trying to adapt to this new reality. The galaxy had changed today. The ancient balance of power had shifted. For the first time in millions of years, a species had joined the Union on their own terms, not as supplicants, but as equals who could guarantee their own security. Some species would see it as humanity's triumph. Others would see it as the Union's failure, that they'd been forced to accept terms rather than dictating them. But Velthara saw something else. She saw a species that had looked at the vast, ancient galaxy and refused to be cowed by it. A species that had analyzed their impossible situation and found the one strategy that gave them a chance. A species that understood that true strength wasn't about who could destroy more, but about making destruction unthinkable. The humans had brought their game theory, their nuclear doctrine, their hard-learned lessons from centuries of living under the shadow of apocalypse. They'd weaponized the concept of mutually assured destruction and offered it to the galaxy as a gift wrapped in a threat. And the terrifying thing, the thing that would keep Velthara processing long into the night, was that it might actually work. The Union had maintained peace through strength for millions of years. Now they would maintain peace through fear. Not fear of any single species, but fear of the consequences of aggression itself. Clause 7 had just made war too expensive to contemplate. The humans, those soft, short-lived, gravity-bound creatures who'd barely learned to leave their own planet, had just taught the galaxy's oldest civilizations a new way to keep the peace. So what do you think? Could humanity's gambit really work? Could mutually assured destruction scale to a galactic civilization? And more importantly, if you were Secretary Chen, standing before the entire galaxy with nothing but your wits and audacity, could you have made the same play? The galaxy is vast, ancient, and full of species that have forgotten what it means to be afraid. Humanity just reminded them, and in doing so, they might have just saved not only themselves, but the very peace they were so afraid of disrupting. If you enjoyed this story of humanity's first steps into the greater galaxy, if you want to hear more tales of humans being underestimated, proving themselves, and showing the universe what our species is really made of, then do me a favor. Hit that like button, drop a comment telling me what you thought of Clause 7, and subscribe for more HFY science fiction stories. Because humanity's journey is just beginning, and trust me, it only gets more epic from here. Until next time, remember, never underestimate the prey species that learn to hunt. They're the most dangerous ones of all.